after my husband, Jack Ernest Little, had died, my children felt like I was alone up on the lake, and they just didn't want me to be there. And they kept insisting I move near Glenda and Curtis. That was my oldest daughter and her husband, who had ranches and were very busy people. But they thought I should move near there because Merrill and Nolan were going from one church to another, and I couldn't follow them. Anyway, I finally agreed to do that, much as I hated to sell my log house. But my grandchildren, with their little children, came on the day after Thanksgiving and packed everything, and we got to Sealey a little after midnight that night. Of course, we were tired. I hadn't had time to think about what I was doing, so I just went to bed. Next morning, we got up and they unpacked everything and put it where I wanted it, and put a Christmas tree up and decorated it, and I was home. So as we had to add the various things, I know that they had to do electric poles and septic tanks and things that took time, but I enjoyed visiting with Kenny and Donna and their 3 children, Leah, Reed, and Laura. Well, we didn't have Laura when I got there, but she came later and was the pride of our life, I guess. We all enjoyed her so. But I was only about 5 minutes from Glenda and Curtis, and we saw each other, almost every day. I saw Kenny's family every day. We got everything about done, and Kenny said, "Nene, when we get you some trees planted and some flowers, you'll feel at home." I said, "Kenny, everything I have is right almost like I had it. I feel at home." We started to enjoy life, seeing the kids play ball and enter into school plays, and at one time Leah had the lead role and came out and sang a solo, and none of us knew she could do that. That was an exciting time. We went to the beach and other places to celebrate birthdays, and Glenda and Curtis always cooked a fabulous meal for all the family, and were careful to cook more than would be eaten so each child could take food home with them. And of course, I always had special things from Glenda's kitchen. Donna often asked me to come out and eat with them, and most of the time, after I had agreed to do it, she would call me back in about 30 minutes and say, "Nene, could you come a little early and make the gravy?" And I always did. Plus playing with the children and teaching them things. I taught them games, domino games, read to them from the Bible and talked about Bible stories. And I taught the girls to sew a little bit. And since Edie lived over in Richmond, that's Glenda's oldest, she would come over, and her daughter Savannah wanted to learn. So I gave them sewing kits, and we did sewing sessions. We did painting sessions, because I do all painting. And I guess the most fun I had was just sitting on my front porch in the summertime, watching Kenny herd cattle and haul cattle in and haul cattle out, and he always had other people helping. But occasionally the kids would get on a horse and ride with him up and down our street. I guess another thing that I enjoyed, I had been given a doll that looked like the one I had broken when I was a little girl. And I decided that maybe I ought to have a doll for each great-granddaughter. And the more I thought about it, I knew there had to be places to find them. I did, and I was given more, and I bought until we had enough. And I always enjoyed watching the girls come and play. Reed only wanted to play ball, and he was good at baseball. I'd get out in the yard with him. I would throw the ball and he'd hit it, and sometimes it came back too close to me. And his daddy said, "No more of that. You're gonna hurt Nanny." So we could only pitch it to each other. We couldn't have him bat it. Every time, almost, that they went to shop, mostly on Saturdays, Donna would call me to go with them. And I guess I kept my eye on the children because I was so afraid something would happen to them. She never seemed to know where they were. Being the mother, I'm sure she did, but it wasn't obvious, so I watched. We had good times together, and we always stopped to get something cold to drink when we started, and then we'd have to have another one before we came back. And she couldn't understand why I didn't like cold drinks. I only wanted water. We had many discussions about things like that. And even after I moved away from there some years later, she called me to tell me that now she knew how to make gravy and mashed potatoes, which was the thing I made so much while we were there, plus cakes and pies and cookies, of course. We shared all the holidays and birthdays together, and sometimes went to the beach for that or to other special places for the meal. And most of the time we had gifts and Christmas tree things at my house. But we always enjoyed going to Glenda's and Curtis to do those things because they enjoyed them so much. I don't think I've ever seen grandparents enjoy their grandchildren any more than they did. And he had a daughter, Melissa, and her two children, who were the age of Edie's and Kenny's children. So we had a house full when we got together, and it was really a neat family time. I always came back up into East Texas to spend time with Merrill Nolan as well. We had their family together sometime during the holidays, and it was just pretty much a repeat of what I had in Sealey, because we had a good time together too, and the children were always enjoying what I could teach them. Mostly, my grandchildren wanted real stories when I told them things at bedtime when they were small. And even during the years that Merrill Nolan were in Brazil as missionaries, when they came home in the summer, we would sit in the swing in the yard, and the kids would want to hear real stories. So I put a quilt in the swing and maybe a pillow too, and all of us pile in there and look at the moon and stars while I told them real stories about our lifetime up to that point. And they've been recorded somewhat, and they still enjoy them. I so enjoyed flowers in Sealey because they grew so much quicker than they did in East Texas. And almost I had blooms all winter all the time because some things endured so well there. And I was right near the barn where I could watch Kenny and Reed taking care of the dogs and the cows and the horses. But at the same time, I was working on my flowers, and they were always a a great source of joy to the whole family. But I guess the greatest thing that happened to us, when we found out we were going to have an addition to the family, and that was Laura, and I told them that she would probably be the prize of the lot. Well, she was. Everybody thought she's beautiful. She was smart. She was good. And I kept her a lot. Of course, kept all three of them, but they were getting bigger and had friends, whereas she did not have those yet. So we shared a lot of times together, and I have some photos to show that. Anyway, I guess the saddest thing was when one Sunday afternoon, I thought, well, I see Kenny out the barn early. I believe I'll make dinner for them, and I'll go out there and see if he can have time to eat. And when I went to the door, I saw that his wife Donna was walking out there, and they had so little time together that I thought I'll wait a little later. And went back and sat down in my living room. In a minute, Leah came running through the door and said, "Minnie, Daddy has had a heart attack." And he was brushing his horse and just hit the ground. And he had a helper there with him who tried to bring him to and could not. But they took him to Houston to the hospital, where he was pronounced dead. And because I'd been so much a part of all that, and Kenny had been not only my first grandson, but he'd had charge of a lot of my things. So my family just thought I needed to move away. And before I knew it, scarcely they had me packed up and moved back to Athens to an apartment in a retirement community. And I have made that home too, but I still miss the years with the children and the things we did there. But I have learned to find new friends, do new things, and stay busy.